You're not allowed here anymore. That's what my son told me. Ethan, standing on the porch of the lake house I built, sitting in my chair, drinking my wine, with Madison, his wife, and her parents all around him like it was their vacation home. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't stumble. He said it like it was fact, like it had already been decided. And me, I just smiled, because that's how I handle moments like that, when someone mistakes silence for weakness. That slow smile. It means I've already started taking notes. I'd driven 2 hours that afternoon, from Phoenix to Clearview Lake. The house looked just like it did the last time I came up a cedar deck. The porch Claire and I had painted together. The windows she insisted we frame in navy blue. Her touches were everywhere. And yet, they were already being erased. Ethan leaned back, resting his ankle over his knee like he owned the place. Madison had that casual, smug look she wears when she thinks she's winning something. Her mother, Patricia, was sipping white wine, no coaster, on the cedar coffee table I built myself. Gerald, Madison's father, nodded at me like I was some groundskeeper who overstayed his shift. I stayed calm. Since when? I asked. Does something I own become someone else's, without me knowing? Madison spoke for him. Since we decided it's better this way. She said it like she was doing me a favor, like I was just some lonely old man clinging to wood and memories. Ethan added, they need a place. You barely use it. It's just sitting here, empty. That was the word. Like grief wasn't a reason to hold on. Like I hadn't driven up just last month to reseal the porch railings, or spent an entire Saturday fixing the screen door she used to leave cracked open for the breeze. But none of it mattered. To them, this was just a resource, a space, a convenience. All right, I said. No anger, no argument, just those 2 syllables. I walked back down the porch steps, the sound of gravel under my boots louder than the farewell I never got. Behind me, Ethan's laugh rang out again. They didn't even bother to lower their voices. On the drive back to Phoenix, I kept the radio off. I didn't want noise. I wanted silence, the kind Claire used to love on that same road. Windows down, her hair catching the wind like a sail. That memory hurt more than what had just happened. I got home at 9:14 p.m., porch light still on Claire's rule. A home should never greet you in darkness, she used to say. Inside, I made coffee I didn't need, sat in the study, looked at her photo on the shelf. Her smile still held something, something quiet and knowing. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Just so you know, we've decided the lake house will be theirs permanently. Don't come back. No discussion. No explanation. Just a final sentence. I read it once, then again, and I set the phone down. It didn't sting the way I thought it would, because somewhere inside me, past the humiliation and disbelief, something colder had started to rise. I'm a builder. I understand foundations, how to pour them, how to reinforce them, and how to make them crack beneath someone's feet without ever lifting a hammer. They thought they'd won, but the game hadn't even started yet. I didn't sleep that night. I went through the motions, brushed my teeth, laid out fresh clothes, flipped through the sports section, but none of it stuck. My mind stayed on Ethan's text, the finality of it, the sheer confidence. It wasn't just about the lake house. It was about what that house meant to me, to Claire, to our family, or whatever was left of it. And the more I sat with it, the more I saw something I'd been too tired, too grieving to recognize this had been building for years. 8 months after Claire passed, Ethan called me up. Madison's car is on its last legs. Dad, he said, she needs something safe for work. I wired 26 grand that week. SUV arrived in their driveway 3 days later. A year later, their landlord was selling. We found a great condo, but we have to move fast. I didn't ask for photos. I just wrote a check for the deposit. Then came the follow-up for furniture. Another 5 figures gone. Each time I told myself Claire would have wanted me to help. Each time I hoped it might keep us close. But the thank yous got shorter. The asks got bigger. And my silence gave them room to think everything I had was up for grabs. By morning, I was in my kitchen again. Fresh pot of coffee. Legal pad on the counter. One word at the top. Options. Underlined twice. I started listing them. Legal defense. Changing the locks. Surveillance. Pressure tactics. Public embarrassment. The list kept growing, but one idea kept rising to the top: control the environment. Ethan thought I was too passive to push back, thought I'd fold like I always did. But he'd forgotten what I used to do for a living. I didn't just build houses. I built systems. I understood sequencing, stress points, reinforcement, and when necessary, controlled demolition. I knew how to make a place turn against someone, quietly, legally, effectively. I just needed help, someone with tools I didn't have. So I walked down the street to a house 3 doors down. Darren Miles lived there, a bachelor in his 50s, electrical engineer turned tech consultant. We met the year Claire passed when I called in a plumber to fix a frozen pipe in his basement, wouldn't take payment. Darren never forgot. When he opened the door that morning, his t-shirt was half tucked and his glasses were smudged. "You all right, Richard?" he asked. I nodded once. "Need your help with a project." He raised a brow. "What kind of project?" "The kind that involves motion sensors, lights, maybe some sound. Triggered automatically when people walk in. Like a haunted house," he asked. "A grin forming. Exactly like that. Except the goal isn't fun. The goal is to make people leave and not want to come back." Darren didn't ask for more, just smiled and said, "Now you've got my attention." By noon that day, Darren's SUV was half filled with gear, sensors, lights, projectors, speakers, and a tablet loaded with control software, all stacked and labeled with his usual precision. He moved like a man on a mission. And truth be told, so did I. The 2-hour drive to Clearview Lake felt shorter than usual. Probably because this time, I wasn't heading there to rest. I was heading there to build something they wouldn't see coming. As we pulled up the gravel driveway, Darren whistled low. "Nice place," he said. "It's mine," I replied, "and I intend to keep it." Inside, the house was quiet, like it always was when Claire wasn't there. Still smelled faintly of cedar oil and old books. But something about today felt different. The house didn't feel empty. It felt like it was waiting. We started in the entryway. Darren mounted the first motion detector above the front door, synced it to the tablet in his hand. "When this trips," he explained, "the lights in the living room will strobe and alternate color patterns. Then the voice assistant kicks in." "What does it say?" I asked. He typed, then pressed play. A firm, calm voice echoed through the space. "Attention! You are not the owner of this property. Leave immediately." I nodded. Perfect. Room by room, we moved through the house. Projectors went into the corners of the guest rooms, programmed to throw shifting shadows just enough to make you question your eyes. Speakers tucked under furniture would emit faint creaks, footsteps, and distant whispers on loop. In the kitchen, Darren connected the faucets and showers to remote triggers. After 30 seconds of motion, everything would turn on at full blast. Upstairs, in the hallway near the guest room, he installed something he called a directional audio module. "Think of it like a flashlight for sound," he said. "Only the person standing in the beam hears it." He tested it. I stepped into place, and immediately a voice whispered in my right ear, "You shouldn't be here." I stepped to the left. Silence. Back again. The whisper returned. Even knowing it was a machine, I felt the hair rise on my neck. We finished just before sunset. From the outside, the house looked untouched, but inside, every room had teeth. We ran a full system test before locking up. Lights flickered on cue. Water burst from taps. Shadows danced across the walls. The house didn't just react, it performed. And it would only do so for people who didn't belong. That night, back in Phoenix, I opened the tablet on my desk. 5 camera feeds entryway, living room, kitchen, upstairs landing, guest hallway. All still, all waiting. At 8:47 p.m., Ethan texted, "We'll be there around 2 Hazara, Saturday. Don't bother coming." That told me everything I needed to know. He still thought I'd roll over, that I was out of options. What he didn't realize was Saturday wouldn't be a homecoming. It would be a reckoning. Saturday came with still skies and no wind, the kind of quiet that feels like the world is holding its breath. I was up early. No alarm needed. The camera feeds were already running on my study monitor. Entryway, clear. Kitchen, untouched. Upstairs, landing soaked in golden light. Everything was ready. At 1:45 p.m., the first sign, a silver SUV turning onto the gravel drive. Ethan driving. Madison in the passenger seat. Gerald and Patricia crammed in the back, leaning forward like tourists eager to see their new investment. They didn't pause to take in the view, didn't stop to ask if they were welcome. They just moved. Madison pointed toward the porch, while Gerald rolled out a suitcase. Patricia clutched a canvas tote stuffed to the brim, the kind of bag you only bring if you intend to settle in. Then Gerald noticed the sign Darren and I had mounted brushed steel, cedar-backed. "Welcome to the house of the future. Enter at your own risk." Patricia froze. "What is this?" Gerald leaned in. Some kind of joke. Madison waved it off. "Dad's being weird. Ignore it." Patricia didn't. She yanked the sign off its bracket, dropped it to the floor, and nudged it aside with her shoe. There. First thing to go. I watched the whole thing unfold through the lens. Ethan pulled out a key. My key. One I'd given him years ago, back when I thought trust was more important than boundaries. He opened the door. "Welcome home," he said. They stepped inside like they'd earned it. I let them settle, let them unpack, pour wine, move the couch cushions. I wanted them to feel at ease, to believe they'd won. The camera in the kitchen showed Madison rinsing grapes. Gerald adjusted the thermostat. Patricia wandered upstairs. Ethan, of course, took the couch. At 8:30, the house was dim, still, silent. Madison was clearing dishes. Gerald was brushing his teeth. Patricia had already changed into a robe and curled up with a paperback. Ethan lay on the couch, scrolling through his phone like the king of nothing. I waited for the ambient sound graph on the tablet to drop low. That's how Darren's system worked. It needed stillness to activate the full sequence. At 10:03 p.m., I tapped the screen. Execute full sequence. The lights triggered first. Red, blue, white, strobing in fast pulses, sharp enough to disorient. The speakers activated next muffled footsteps in hallways, soft creaks from above, faint whispers layered under the noise. Then came the water. All at once, kitchen sink, upstairs shower, guest bathroom faucet. Every pipe roared alive, steam already clouding the upper floors. And then the voice. Attention. Unauthorized occupants detected. Leave the premises immediately. In the upstairs hallway. Gerald stumbled out, squinting, yelling Patricia's name. She screamed from the guest room, swearing she saw someone standing in the doorway. Downstairs, Ethan froze mid-step when the directional audio hit his ear. Get out! He looked behind him. Madison rushed into the room, panic in her voice. Is this you? What is this? Ethan shouted. It's a malfunction, just a system glitch, the whisper repeated. Closer this time. You don't belong here. Madison grabbed her tote. Gerald pulled Patricia from the hallway. The cameras caught Ethan scrambling toward the front door, trying to override the smart lock. 30 seconds of delay built into the system, just enough to make the walls feel closer. The moment the lock disengaged, they burst onto the porch. They didn't look back. The SUV pulled away within 60 seconds. Not one of them said a word. Back in Phoenix, I sat still in my study. Every camera feed went quiet. The house, once again, was mine. The house stayed quiet after they left, still, watching. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. Instead, I stayed in my study, watching the feeds on the tablet like a man waiting for a second storm. The light from the screen cast long shadows across my desk. Claire's photo sat beside it, her smile as steady as ever. At 7:31 the next morning, my phone rang. Ethan. I let it buzz 3 times before picking up. Morning, son, I said, keeping my tone light. His voice cracked with frustration. What did you do? I leaned back in the chair. What do you mean? Don't play dumb. Dad. The house went insane. Lights flashing, water flooding, voices screaming at us. Madison's parents were traumatized. Patricia didn't sleep all night. I kept my voice even. That sounds terrifying. Did you call someone? We called the police. He snapped. They showed up at 6. Walked through everything. said the systems were functioning normally. They couldn't find anything wrong. Well, I said, that's a relief. He didn't appreciate the calm. Don't mock me. I just don't see how any of that has anything to do with me. I live 2 hours away. You set this up, he hissed. You hired someone. Ethan, are you saying I hired someone to stage a psychological performance in a fully automated home while I sat in Phoenix? Silence. Then, we're still moving in. I didn't flinch. You made that clear. Don't make this ugly. You already did. He hung up. I stared at the screen for a moment. No anger. No regret. Just clarity. They were still coming. And now I had to make sure there'd be nothing left for them to come back to. That Monday morning, I called Marcus Hall, my longtime attorney. We met that afternoon. I explained everything: the attempted takeover, the eviction, the messages, the fact that my son and his in-laws were treating my home like a vacation rental. Marcus didn't blink. Do you still want to keep the property? Yes, I said, but not in my name. That raised an eyebrow. I want it untouchable. Not just for now, for good. We reviewed options. Transferring it into a trust was one way, but I wanted something cleaner. Donate it, I said, to someone who'll protect it and make sure I can still visit. He nodded slowly. Do you have a cause in mind? Claire had always cared deeply about veterans. Volunteered every month at the recovery center downtown. So I said, give it to Veterans Rest Initiative and add a clause, lifetime honorary access, just for me. Marcus smiled. Now that I can make airtight. By Tuesday afternoon, the paperwork was drawn. By Wednesday, signed. By Friday, recorded with the county. The house now belonged to Veterans Rest, but I still had the keys. And Ethan, he had nothing. Friday morning, the news broke. Veterans Rest Initiative posted a photo of their director on the lake house porch. The caption thanked Mr. Richard Hale for his extraordinary donation of Clearview Lake Villa, a future retreat for veterans and their families. By noon, local news had picked it up. Messages poured in. Old friends, former clients, even a few neighbors who never called unless they needed something, all congratulating me. Ethan, however, stayed silent. Until he didn't. Saturday morning, my phone rang. No hello, no hesitation. You gave it away, he said, flat. To strangers, to people who'll respect it. I said, you destroyed this family. No, Ethan, you did that the moment you tried to erase me from my own porch. On Monday, we met at Marcus Hall's office. Ethan arrived with Madison, both tight-lipped, flanked by Gerald and Patricia, who looked like they'd dressed for court. They came to negotiate. Marcus didn't let them. He slid the official property record across the table. "As of Friday morning," he said, "the deed belongs to Veterans Rest Initiative. It's irrevocable." Madison tried to argue familial rights. Gerald asked for transition time. Patricia called the whole thing cruel. Marcus calmly handed over a cease and desist letter. "You are no longer welcome on the property. Any further attempt to access it will be treated as criminal trespass." Ethan stared at the page like it was written in another language. "So, that's it?" he asked. "He wins." I met his eyes. "No," I said. "The house does." They left angry, but quiet, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. After the meeting at Marcus's office, it felt like the world slowed down for the first time in years. No more calls, no more threats, no more half pleas disguised as demands. Just me, a house by the lake, and the steady silence Claire always cherished. The lake house changed. It wasn't mine anymore. Not in the way it once was, but I still had the keys. Veterans Rest turned it into a retreat for people who needed it. A place for healing. Not for ownership battles. Sometimes I would drive up from Phoenix, bring a thermos of coffee and a stack of old photographs, and just sit by the water, thinking about what it all meant. One crisp afternoon, a pickup truck pulled into the driveway. It wasn't Ethan. It was Ray Torres, a veteran who'd heard about the donation. He didn't ask for a tour, didn't want a speech. He just wanted to stand by the water and breathe. That's when it struck me, sometimes the best thing you can do with what you build is to give it away and let someone else find their own peace. Weeks passed. The seasons turned. The silence in the villa grew warmer, more welcoming, no longer defensive. Even the floorboards seemed to settle, creaking now with acceptance instead of warning. Then, on a snowy evening, Ethan came back. He pulled up quietly, a cardboard tray of coffee in hand. He didn't look angry, just tired, worn at the edges. We sat in the living room by the fire, neither of us rushing the words. He started. "I've been thinking about what you said, about boundaries, about family." I let him speak. I didn't try to fill the silence. He told me he'd left Madison, needed time to figure out who he was beyond all the entitlement and noise. He apologized for the things he said, for the things he did. I listened, because forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing what you carry forward. We talked about work, about the weather, about nothing and everything. He didn't ask for the house. I didn't offer. That was never really the point. Before he left, he said, "I don't want to be the kind of Ern who only calls when he needs something." I believed him. At least, I wanted to. I poured his coffee into one of Claire's old mugs and sent him on his way. After he left, I sat by the window and watched the snow fall. The house was quiet, but not empty. I felt Claire's presence there, in the wood grain of the floors, the way the light caught on the kitchen counter. The simple truth that a home isn't about who owns it. It's about who respects it. The first group of veterans arrived a few days later. Dana Ortiz, the director of Veterans Rest, ran the place with a gentle kind of authority. She asked me about Claire, about what made the house special. I told her about the mornings by the water, the evenings by the fire, the way Claire believed every home could be a place for healing if you let it. On the porch, Dana showed me a plaque they wanted to mount by the door. It was simple, just a name and a phrase, given in memory of Claire Hale. May this house be a quiet kind of healing. I said yes. Claire would have liked that. As I locked the door behind me, I realized the real victory wasn't keeping the house or winning some petty war over property. The real victory was finding the courage to draw a line and live by it, to protect what mattered, not with anger or force, but with clarity and quiet resolve. Some places you keep, some places you give away. And if you're lucky, some places teach you the difference. Before you go, ask yourself, what would you fight for? What would you let go? To keep a piece of your own soul. If this story meant something to you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, the boundaries you set may be the very things that save you.